Hi all! Today I am in my studio and playing around with a bunch of things, but the one thing I wanted to show you that you might like is making substrates with cloth and plaster. I learned this from an online class I took from Jean Oliver, her Wandering Muse class. This was one of the projects we did, and I've used it for several other projects that I've done, but it's creating a hard page out of fabric. And I have I have 3 different techniques I'm going to show you. This was the art journal that I worked on in Jean Oliver's class. Most of the pages are blank, and then I plan on going back and adding things into them when the mood strikes me. So every once in a while I'll go in and I'll put tape down, or I'll collage a few things, and later on I'll come back and add more. So it's kind of just an ongoing project I enjoy working on myself, but I'm going to show you how to go about creating the plaster on fabric. I have a couple right now that I did earlier today so that they could be dry, and I've used 3 different plasters to use to show you. The first one. Now I did these probably around 11 o'clock this morning. It's 3:30 now, so it's been 4.5 hours since I've done these. This one I used plaster cloth, and basically this is what you use to make a cast when you have a broken leg or a broken arm, or contractors use it to patch walls. But it's really kind of neat because you just dip it in water. It comes, well, you'll see how it comes. I'll show you that. But it also leaves a pretty nice texture. I like the texture that I get when I'm using this. And that one's hard. This one was your basic plaster Paris from Home Depot. This guy cost me about 20 some odd dollars. The plaster Paris, I think, cost right around $8 at Home Depot. And I mixed up my own plaster, and it's hard as can be. They're still cold, they're still damp. So it'll be a day or two before I really actually will use them. But that just goes to show how fast they set up. The third one, which is not even close to being dry, was the most expensive, and I used Modern Masters Venetian plaster, just their base white plaster. And it's kind of nice because it's really buttery and it goes on smooth, but it doesn't dry that great. So my other ones will be ready to do something with tomorrow. This one might take a couple days, and then I'm not completely sure it's going to harden all the way. Here's a couple of fabric pieces, just pieces of fabric that I use the Modern Masters on, and they still are pliable. I don't know if I didn't put the plaster on thick enough. I felt like I did, but you know, it's fun nonetheless. It gives you a nice smooth surface, the Venetian plaster surface to work on. So I'm going to show you how I did this. Get this out of the way. And I started with just burlap ribbon, the burlap ribbon from Michaels. It's not very expensive, and there's a lot to it. So I'm starting with that, as I did on my sample pieces. And I started with making sure I fray my ends so I have a finished off piece. And I don't have to do anything more to that. And then, of course, make sure that you save all those little frays because they're going to come in handy for some other project. Okay, so here we go. The first one is the plaster cloth. And what you're going to need is I use a bread tin full of water, full of warm water. And I should have cut these prior. I was so organized with everything else. And this comes in a sheet and a roll, and you just cut off what you want. I kind of like cutting it in different shapes, different little chunks to kind of add to the texture. And it's really easy to cut. A little messy, but really easy. Okay. So, and it makes a really fun noise when you put it in. Well, it makes a little crackling noise. Then I just lay it on there. You almost can't go wrong. And I rub it in because that kind of releases the plaster. Do another piece. Little crackling noise. And then I kind of blot it and rub it so it will attach to the piece underneath. There we go. Keep layering it on. The more that you layer on, the thicker and the harder it will dry. And one more. I'm going to do the trick for this one. And if you want less texture, keep rubbing it in. That kind of loosens the plaster and smooths it out. So there you go. That's our first one. Let me get this out of the way. The second one is the plaster of Paris, and it is very easy to mix up. You mix 2 parts of the plaster to 1 part water. So I use these little Dixie cups, 1 water and 2 plaster. Get this in here. Put a little bit of extra in there. And then let me just take this end of this paintbrush and mix it up. It mixes pretty well. You just mix it in cold water. And you could, if you wanted to, you could mix some paint color into this if you wanted. This is actually the same thing that you can use to make chalk paint for those of you who like to do chalk paint furniture. And then I take my little, actually this is liquidy enough for what I'm doing, to just pour it on there and smooth it out. Kind of like frosting a cake. Now I do like to get it a little thicker on the burlap because that way not so much of the burlap texture shows up. And then do a nice pull through it. And there you go. That's going to be a nice, smooth surface to work on. Okay, the last one, my least favorite, although I do love Modern Master products, this one is not working so great for me. And it's pretty thick. Now, that could be because the can doesn't close tightly. So maybe it is dried out a little bit, but this is pretty much, it's I got it on Amazon, $24 a can, and I haven't had it that long, so it kind of bums me out that it's kind of setting up and getting thick. So I'm just getting it on there, and I am putting it a little thick, try to even it out a little bit. And then I'll take my other trowel and smooth it. And I'm kind of at a 45-degree angle and just dragging through, maybe a little bit more than a 45. So there you go. That is how I do that. And now when these are dry, before they dry, actually, I'm going to lift them off of here and I'll put them on a towel so they don't stick to this piece of freezer paper I have down here. And, but there you go. So, let me clean off my hands. Again, it makes, let me get that out of the way so it doesn't, it makes a really nice surface to work on. Oops, I'm trying to catch my strings there. Great surface to paint on. You can see all the texture that's happening in there. That is the plaster cloth. You can collage to it, you can paint over it. It's just a really fun, simple thing to do. It's a little time consuming because you have to be patient and let the paint dry, the plaster dry. But I think you're gonna like it. So give it a shot, see what you think, see what you can create over that. And thanks for watching.